About a month after leaving Los Dinos, I spent the day in San Antonio with Selena. We went out to eat, did some shopping, and then hung out at my mom's house. In just a short time I had been with her, I could feel myself opening up, becoming more loving and generous with everyone I knew. I always told my mom and dad that I loved them now, just as Selena did with people she cared about. I even bought small gifts for people on impulse because I seen how happy those gifts made Selena feel when she bought them. And I experienced the joy my friends felt when I remembered them. I never in a million years would have become a generous person if it hadn't been for Selena showing me the way. That particular day, Selena had escaped to see me in San Antonio by explaining to her family that she needed to run some errands and would eat dinner with some girlfriends. I had to push her to leave my mother's house. Finally, because I didn't want her driving late at night and getting questioned at home. Let me take you back to your apartment at least, Selena said, wrapping her arms around my waist. No, no, I'll call Jesse to come get me. I said, it's already getting late. Plus, I want to be on the phone with you when you're driving back. Selena and I could talk for hours. Within a few minutes of Selena leaving, we were deep into our conversation. Suddenly, my mother's doorbell rang. It was after dark. Nobody ever came to my mother's house this late. Who could it be? I wondered. I was still on the phone with Selena. Hang on, I had said, and walked over to the window to peer through the blinds. Dictator's car was parked out front. I panicked. How had he tracked me down here? 'Cause he's a psycho. Then I remembered that I had put my mother's address on the payroll forms when I joined the band. That's some Yolanda type stuff. Like it seemed he is the male version of Yolanda. Them two are like two peas in a pod. Oh my gosh, I said, Selena. Your dad is outside. What? She shrugged. What's he doing there? I don't know. I'm going to hang up and find out. I'll call you back. He's there because he's psychotic and he's obsessed. That's why. For him to sit up there and go through personal documents to look up of someone's address to track down their child, well, no, their grown child is ridiculous. But when people of all walks of life came to him told complaining about Yolanda and her psychotic manners, he brushed it off. Now how did like that doesn't add up to me. And I mentioned this in plenty of other videos. That crap doesn't add up to me at all. It doesn't sit well with me as well. But let's continue. I promised and started down the hall, the phone still in my hand. Clearly, Dictator was here to confront me. Maybe he was even checking to see if Selena was here. Before I could make it down the hall to the front door, my stepfather opened it. I came around the corner of the hall and saw Pops with the front door slightly open. He had poked his head outside a little. Can I help you, sir? Pops asked in a stern voice. That's when I saw that Pops had a gun in his hand, as he should, because that person on the opposite side of the door is crazy. So he did the right thing with having protection, because he is the female his name is now Dictator Saldivar. Period. Dictator Saldivar the second or the third. Mr. Dictator Saldivar. The pistol was older than I was, and I'd never seen him use it. He kept that gun around only to scare intruders. Pops had met Dictator before and knew who he was. He knew what Dictator was doing to Selena and me, and he didn't like it. As he should. As he should not like it. What normal person would like somebody that's that controlling? People just don't listen. When you do things like that, especially to your children, they become rebellious. When you shelter them and you prevent them from just exploring life, Those are the ones that be the most rebellious, and that's what drove them to get married, because he was just preventing them from just living life and letting them explore whatever they were feeling. So I mean, even though I'm not saying that they were never was going to get married on their own, but that's the reason why they got married sooner than later, because of him. They basically like, if we can't be with each other just as boyfriend and girlfriend because he can't accept it, then we just get married, because now he can't do nothing about that because it's signed, sealed, delivered. He has no control over her and over them, because once you're married, the husband is the one that's in control. So, yeah, okay. Let's continue. I guess this was his way of showing his displeasure. Hey, dictator, what's going on? I called from behind my stepfather. Pops turned around and said, Oh, you know this man? Yeah, Pops, I said, keeping one eye on the gun. That's dictator, Selena's dad. My stepfather opened the door a little bit wider and moved out of the way. Still, he kept looking dictator up and down, his face saying, Just try something. Go ahead. Yes. His stepfather got more testosterone than Chris. I'm sorry, Chris, but it's true. Because that's the stuff that Chris should have said to him back on that bus. I didn't like it that my stepfather was carrying a gun. At that same time, I thought it was great that Dictator, a man so used to intimidating others, a man accustomed to having the whole world revolved around him, was seeing that I had friends and family too. I didn't invite Dictator inside, as you shouldn't. I walked down the front walk towards his car, knowing he had to follow me, "What's up, Dictator?" "Have you spoken to Selena?" he said. His voice was surprisingly friendly. I'm sure he's friendly because he's scared, punk. But maybe that's had something to do with the gun, of course. No, I said. Why? I felt terrible for lying. At the same, again, enough with this goody goody. As much as he hurt him and Selena, forget about how you feel terrible about him lying. He pushed them to lying. If he would just be a supportive father and a supportive manager and a supportive friend, then they wouldn't have to worry about lying or sneaking around like they're kids. They're grown. They were both grown. It was no reason for them to do that. Period. At the same time, I didn't want to make things harder on Selena than they already are. I wasn't about to tell Dictator that I spent the whole day with his daughter and that he missed her by just a few minutes. She's supposed to be home, that's all, Dictator said. I was worried. And so you travel all the way across town to Chris' house to because you're worried. Come on now. But when people were telling you, oh, Yolanda had murals of her all over her apartment, that Yolanda was being mean to clients, stealing stuff. Oh, you was brushing it off then, saying Selena, let Selena handle it. But you drive cross town because you so called worry about Selena. Are you serious? Get the stepping, man. I'm sure she'll be home soon, I said. You would have heard if something had happened. We had reached Dictator's car, and that's when I saw the map fold up on the front seat in that awkward way maps get folded when people are in a hurry. This guy really had hunted me down like a psycho. He wasn't about to give up on trying to destroy whatever was between Selena and me. He just had no idea that our love would be such a formidable opponent. Chapter 5. Selena and I were in a holding pattern for the next couple of months. Her father continued to see me as a threat. She said, Dictator was worried that if Selena was with me, I might pull her out of the band, and all the work he had done would go down the tubes. As he put it to Selena, He showed no signs of relenting, no matter how much Selena argued, begged, or cried. Then on April 2nd, 1992, I woke up in a Corpus Christi hotel to the sound of someone pounding on the door. I had seen Selena the night before I spent the night in Corpus because we were out until late. My hotel, the Gulf Beach 2 on Surfside Boulevard, was on the other side of the harbor bridge from the city. I usually stayed here whenever I visited Selena. We felt safer and more secluded if we were on the other side of the bridge from her family. In fact, nobody we hung out with in Corpus ever crossed the bridge much, so I didn't have to worry about somebody seeing my car and would get it back to Dictator. I was in town, I was in town. I had the feeling that he probably drove around every hotel in Corpus Christi, Texas, looking for Selena and me whenever she wasn't home at sunset. Crazy. She was over 20 years old. Why would he have to basically look in the window to see if his daughter made it home by sunset? By sunset, like she's 16 years old. She's a grown woman. She can stay out as long as she wants to. She was making her own money. She has her own life. And it's okay that she has a love life. He had a love life with his wife and probably allegedly with Yolanda. So I'm just like, let her be. Like, this is utterly ridiculous and sick. He is sick. For that reason, she never spent the night with me. Hmm. They couldn't even get it on because of him. He was cock blocking. Selena had been Selena had been violently keeping up her performance schedule despite her disagreements with her father. She was a professional and she knew that her family livelihood as well as her reputation depended on her showing up to do the gigs. Dictator booked for the band. I knew that Selena was due to leave early that morning for a show in El Paso. I didn't have any place to be, so I had decided to sleep in and leave at a checkout time. The pounding on the door continued. I opened my eyes and glared at the hotel alarm clock. It was just after 10 o'clock. The hotel maid must be knocking on the door. I decided, thinking I'd check out. No, not right now, I yelled without getting out of bed. Come back later. Checkout is at noon. The knocking continued, more insistent now. Come back later, I shouted again. Don't you see the sign on the door? More knocking, grumbling. I got out of bed, yanked on my jeans, and looked through the peephole. It wasn't the maid, it was Selena. My first thought was that something must have happened with her father. I fumbled with the lock and got the door open. What's the matter? Why aren't you in El Paso? Don't you have a show? Did something happen? She was crying too hard to answer. I just held her for a while on the bed, feeling her body tremble against mine and trying to coax her to talk about whatever was going on. Finally, Selena sat up and started telling me that she couldn't stand to be apart any longer. I don't want anybody to be in our way, she said. Let's get married right now. Stunned, I just stared at her. Wait a second. I love you. I want to be with you. You know I want to marry you someday. But why do we have to do it like this right now? There's no other way, she said, and started crying again. We have to elope. I felt all twisted up inside. Half of me knew that she was right, while the other half of me was worried about what she would be giving up to do this. I wanted to marry Selena, but I also understood from being with her when she saw a wedding scene in a movie or a picture of a bride how much Selena had always dreamed about her glorious wedding day. She always talked about what she would do when she planned her own wedding. Every detail, right down to the invitations and the cake. If we elope, that would never happen. No, no, no. I told her, I don't want to get married behind everybody's back. We can figure out a way. It's just going to take some time for your dad to get used to the idea. He will never, never will he. She said, "You've seen how he is." I kept resisting. In the back of my mind, I was terrified that if we got married in a hurry without that fairy tale ceremony, Selena will always regret our relationship. "You've always wanted a wedding." I reminded her, smoothing her hair and pulling her closer. "I don't want to cheat you out of that white gown and bridesmaids and flowers you dreamed about all your life. You want your family there all around you. You want your father to walk you down the aisle." Selena broke in, stopped me cold. "That's never going to happen, Chris." And when she said that, I believed her. "All right," I said finally. "There's nothing that would make me happier than to marry you. What do we need to do?" "We can go to the courthouse and get married," she said. "We can do that right now. It's the only way he'll ever leave us alone, Chris. Then we can be together." "Okay," I said. "Let's do it. Let's get married." I couldn't believe that those words had come out of my mouth. Married? Me? I was only 22 years old. But what else could I do? Selena was right. We loved each other, and there was no other way she and I were ever going to be together unless we were married. Abraham wouldn't be able to stop us. Let that slide. Dictator wouldn't let stop us from seeing each other if we were legally husband and wife. I love the sound of that word, wife, as I looked at Selena and repeat, "Come on, let's go get married." I'll never forget Selena's smile when I said that. I could just feel all the pressure and stress leave her body as she watched me get dressed for the courthouse. I had nothing to wear but a t-shirt and jeans. Selena was wearing a skirt and boots. I couldn't wear my best clothes, she admitted shyly. Otherwise, my dad would have suspected something was up. On our second wedding anniversary, Selena and I started talking about renewing our vows after 5 years of marriage. We would have a real ceremony. Then we promised each other. Selena bought a wedding dress and started cutting out pictures of floral arrangements she liked for our centerpieces at the reception. She even ordered a wedding registry book with a gold metal plate on it. The book had our names embroidered on it, along with the date of our wedding, April 2nd, 1992. She had it planned out, and it would have been a beautiful ceremony. It almost breaks my heart to think about it now. At the Nueces County Courthouse, Selena took control, and all I had to do was go with the flow. I wasn't scared, but I felt a little numb, as if I were in shock from making such an abrupt decision, one that would no doubt have consequences I could even predict yet. I never would have known what to do, but Selena just kept asking questions, and the clerk at the windows explained what steps we need to take. We were lucky in that clerk agreed to waive the standard waiting period for a marriage license, probably because nearly everyone in Corpus knew who Selena was by then. We paid what we needed to pay, signed the necessary papers, and then stood in front of the Justice of the Peace, who said a few words, then bam, we were married just like that. It was crazy. I couldn't believe that I was actually in this room with Selena saying wedding vows. Those moments went by so fast, yet I knew that the way I felt about her at that very moment was going to be the way I felt about her forever. No matter what I had thought about marriage before, not much truly given my own family history, I felt with great certainty that remembering those wedding vows will always be a part of glue holding us together. Neither of us cared that it was just the two of us standing in the front of the Justice of the Peace or that we were so young. Everything else, even thought of the wedding Selena was giving up and worried about her father and the band, flew right out of the window. We were in love. We were husband and wife. We were happy. Nobody could come between us anymore. That's all that mattered. The best part of the day was walking hand in hand out of the courthouse, our shoulders touching instead of having to pull apart when we were in public. It felt so good, even as I wondered what Dictator would do when he heard the news. Selena and I were at peace with our decision. content to know that we had finally officially started our lives together. We had every intention of living a happily ever after. Nobody can stop us from doing that now.